What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Our Voice podcast. How you doing, Desmond?
Man, I'm straight, man. This is our inaugural podcast of Our Voice. We're just going to go ahead and try to work our way through this thing and try to get this thing right, man. First, I think we ought to introduce ourselves.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm so excited. I've been waiting, all week for this. My name is Neil Voles. I am the Deputy Director at the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. I'm a returning citizen and, just really honored to be a part of this podcast. How about tell us a little bit about yourself, Desmond? Man, it needs no introduction.
Well, yes, everybody. I'm Desmond Mead. I am the Executive Director of Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. And like Neil, I am a returning citizen. For those of you all who don't know what returning citizen means, that is an individual who's been convicted of a felony offense and is come back into the community. Either we served our time, whether in prison or probation, whatever, and we're just trying to move on with our lives.
That's right. I got to tell you, Desmond, it's like, a lot of people have been asking because we've been out on social media talking about this podcast. Folks are like, man, what's this about? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about what the podcast is. And that's a lot of what we're going to do today is let people know, like, man, it's a journey for you, specifically those of us who've been impacted by the criminal justice system. I know for me, man, I woke up this morning with a story in my heart and I just couldn't shake it all day. I kept thinking back to when I moved to Florida. 2008, 2009, right in the middle of a recession, trying to figure out what in the world this new life was going to be like, got a felony conviction, trying to make my way. And I just couldn't get a job. It took me forever to get a job because, I had to check that box.
That feeling.
Right. And so, I ended up getting a job. I was working as a night janitor in Fort Myers. So 2:00 in the morning till 10 o'clock every day. That was my thing. And I decided, I was like, man, I got to get a job during the day. So I actually tried to get a similar job cleaning, and I applied for this position, and I walked into the place that was hiring, sat down on the couch. The lady who was doing the hiring, all of a sudden we started talking. She's like, oh, hey, what's your name? I'm like, I'm Neil, and build this instant camaraderie. Like, she's like, oh, it's really nice to meet you, Neil. And I'm thinking, man, this could go good. This could go good. Neil might eat a steak tonight, And as we progress into her office, she's still, asking me what I'm doing and, using my name. And lo and behold, she gets that application out. I'll never forget. And she looked down. I could see her see that little checkbox, and she looked up at me like she had seen a ghost, and she forgot my name. She says, well, Nick, I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do about this. And so for me, man, I was thinking about this podcast and I was like, you know what? I think this is for all of us who've had them Nick moments. It might have been in front of a judge. It might have been with the probation officer with a family member, trying to get that work job or, not being able to get housing, whatever it was, man. If you've had one of those moments, man, this podcast is yours. This is, your podcast. And we look forward to, talking about issues that impact us,
Well, Nick, you're right. Well, you're right about that. Just listening to you, I'm thinking about, my journey. I went through a whole lot and been able to accomplish a lot of things, and just even recently, really having a difficult time, like finding housing, right? So we're trying to get a house for my wife and I, for our family, trying to own a home. And, I'm telling you, man, it is rough. And I think about all of the applications we filled out, right, just to be denied because of a previous felony conviction, the loan officer's felony conviction could adversely impact you. Even like when they run the credit, that's, once again, your felony record can hurt your credit as it relates to trying to buy or own a home, right? And I was thinking, wow, you mean if I am facing all of this, I could imagine what that person is coming out of prison, right? Or just getting through a recent conviction. My conviction was back in 2001. Right. So it was over 20 years. And I still have a hard time. So no one ever called me Nick, right? They didn't call me out my name. But that feeling of really just being like left out or blocked out, is definitely something that I know is common. But the other thing too, though, about this, which I'm really excited about, is that a lot of times we've heard, that phrase, that those that are closest to the pain are closest to the solution, and we fight so hard and advocate so hard to make sure that the voices of returning citizens are at the table when we're talking about policies, or when we talk about strategies, when we talk about campaigns, right? But the other part that is missing is that our voices are not in the airways, right? And that's what this is all about. How do we get our voice, the voices of people who've been impacted by the so-called justice system, right? How do we get those voices out there? Because there are so many amazing individuals in the state of Florida, across the country, that we've run across for so many years, who are doing amazing work and doing amazing things in the community, are being extremely valuable assets to our society, but their voices are not heard, right?
That's right. And Des, and sometimes it seems to me our voices are distorted, right? Or it's like a two-dimensional conversation. Sometimes, I've seen where, you go to an event and returning citizens aren't putting that event together, but they're like, hey man, we got a seat at the table for you so you can share your story. But actually, if you really want to know the stories, if you really want to know what's going on with ultimately, and like 8 million people in the state of Florida have been impacted by the justice system, and our families, and, like all of our communities. So this is an issue that really impacts all of us. And so it's mind-boggling to me to hear you kind of share about trying to get housing, right? I'm like, man, Desmond's been time 100, right? Like there's a day in Orlando called Desmond Mead Day.
I know, right?
And still it's like, I don't know, man.
In Orlando, right? Still can't get a house in Orlando. And so those are, there are so many different issues or different collateral consequences that people with felony convictions face. And when you add to that, people who may not even have a felony conviction, but they got an arrest on their record of misdemeanors. We've seen that documentary Charged, right? Yeah. To where it really talked about how people with misdemeanors are like the gateway for law enforcement to engage with folks. And sometimes that engagement does not turn out well. So when you look at the Mike Brown, the Sandra Blands, and so many other folks, right, that the initial reason for the police engaging those individuals was over a perceived misdemeanor offense, right? And so even people with misdemeanors or people who've been arrested, right, is part of this world as well. And we want to just make sure that even their voices are heard.
That's right. And I think about like the narrative shift that's required of that. And I think about this show, right? Like this show, the people who put this together, right? Like the folks who aren't in front of the microphones right now, directly impacted folks, returning citizens, man, doing their thing, learning how to put a podcast together and saying like, man, this is our voice. So it's everybody,
that's right. It's our first podcast, but I'm going to tell y'all, those who are listening, let me tell you, this is going to be something that's not only informative, man, but we're going to have fun with this, man. Those of you all who know Neil and I, you know that we're some characters when we get together. Neil is like my brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm like his, matter of fact, his mom adopted me, right? His Mama Vose already adopted me, and I'm about to take over Neil's bedroom when I go back up to Ohio, right? But we're going to have fun on this podcast. We're going to make sure that we keep people engaged. We're going to be, those of you in the audience, man, we're going to be giving you opportunities to really just come up stage and ask some questions and share some perspectives. And let me tell you, we are not going to avoid controversy, right? We are not going to avoid controversy. We believe in facing things as they are and dealing with them and not trying to hide from them. And we're going to just keep it real, man.
That's right, man. We're not as stupid as TV thinks we are. You know what I'm saying? It's like we want to actually have real conversations and get deeper and not just stay at the surface and not just do that. So we're going to have returning citizens come on and talk to us about like trying to get a job license in a state in which 40% of the jobs require licenses, and if you get denied because you got a felony conviction, but you still got folks asking you to move up the ladder, right? It's like, well, those 4 rungs don't exist, man. Let's talk about that. Like not from a perspective of we're blaming somebody as much as, man, we're just trying to live our lives. We're trying to get better.
So Neil, this is what we need to do, right? We need to go ahead and just take a pause for a second, right? Because I suspect there may be some people listening in who really don't know about us, right? And I think the us is really important. And I think we should, at least lay out, like how we met. It wasn't that I was coming off the expressway and I seen you holding the sign says, "Will be a deputy director for food," or whatever. What was it, man? Tell us that story. At least share with the audience.
Oh man, that was a day that changed my life, man. In 2015 when I met you. And it really started back in 2006 when I got my felony conviction. And at the time, I had a really good job, had a whole lot of influence. I was actually living in Washington. I was a Washington lobbyist, man.
You were a big timer.
I was a big timer,
you
man.
You were balling.
I could see the White House out of my window, So it was an interesting life.
And the White House saw you.
No, that's exactly right. Yes, I could get people in there pretty easy back in the day. And so, made some stupid decisions, selfish decisions, crossed some lines I shouldn't have crossed, and got in trouble. It was a big high-profile scandal. And wrecked my life in the process, and moved to Florida thinking, hey man, I'm going to start over and I want to do it right. I want to live an honest life. I want to try and learn from these mistakes and change. And so it took me a long time to deal with that shame, to deal with my own junk. And I heard people tell me a lot, you got to get involved, man. And Florida is one of these states that you can't vote for the rest of your life. And man, it was weird. It took me a while to get involved. And ultimately, man, it was meeting you on a college campus in FGCU, Fort Myers. Here I am. I'm somebody who was involved in conservative politics for 20 years. I walk into this room and there you are. Right now, mind you, look, my journey is, I make no bones about it. Right? I had resources. I paid over $500,000 to keep my butt out of jail, So
you really was balling back then.
But yeah, and the number of people I've talked to, friends of mine right now, I would have taken the time and come down here with the money. But nonetheless, right. So I still didn't have my head on right. I didn't think I wasn't ready. But then when are we ready? So I walk in the room and there you are, talking to a group of 30, 40 people on a college campus. And instantly, man, I sit down and I think, man, this feels a little progressive-y. And I was legitimately thinking about getting up and walking out. I never forget the line that you said, man, because you were sharing your story and you said, look, no individual and no group of people has a monopoly on pain. This is a story that impacts everybody.
You know what? I'm glad you said that, right? Because, when you was talking, I was thinking about remember when we did the Samantha Bee episode, right?
Yeah.
And Samantha was, she's making jokes throughout the story. And I remember when she asked me, about how much time I did in prison. And then she turned around and asked you how much time you did. And you were like, well, I didn't serve any time in prison. And she was like, yeah, white collar crime, right? And talking about the distinction. But I thought about that because that didn't minimize what you had to go through, especially moving to Florida, dealing with even the personal obstacles, the personal shame, that, maybe you felt bad about how your family looked or how they felt about how you may have let them down and things like that. But at the end of the day, though, Neil, right, that just because I might have spent time in prison, that doesn't minimize whatever trauma you went through dealing with the criminal justice system. And so many times, folks would be like, well, that person only did 5 years. I did 20, right? But who has a monopoly on it? No one has a monopoly on the pain, right? No one has a monopoly on the suffering. And definitely, I don't think anyone has a monopoly on the solution. But we start first by understanding, listen, your reality is yours. Your trauma is yours, right? And we find those touch points that we can agree on, and we move on that to help both of us actually help everybody heal.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, man, what you started changing just in that first time we met. In my heart, the way I saw things was to see people as people, right? Really, how do we align with each other along the lines of humanity? Right. And then build from there. And you did that to me. You were like, man, I remember us talking for 2 hours, after everybody else had left. And I remember kind of opening up and you asking me some questions. And I was like, man, he's listening. I feel a part of this thing already. And then I just learned so much, under your leadership and working alongside you and seeing this movement grow and really change things.
Well, you was a unicorn, by the way. You know that, right? You was a unicorn because, I remember when I got introduced to this work, based on a lot of the language that we was using, a lot of the rhetoric, you would think that only blacks or Democrats, right, will ever have felony convictions, right? And so you were in essence a unicorn. That wait a minute, they are more than just blacks or Democrats or progressives who are suffering from felon disenfranchisement, right? Like, I tell people that when I was arrested, when the cop arrested me, he didn't ask me if I was Democrat or Republican, nor did the judge when he sentenced me. And so it was, in the past, it was so easy to just end up believing that all of these issues only applied to like the African American community, right? And it's in meeting people like you and being able to elevate and showcase people like you to where we see that, yes, it may be a disproportionate impact on the African American community, but that doesn't negate the impact that it has on every other community. And that if we can get all the communities together to address the issue, we can be successful.
No, that's exactly right. I remember you just challenging me and my friends and my kind of social network, like, man, get petitions signed, like, go out in the community. And there was a diner just up the street from where I lived. And I was helping to run a recovery program at the time. And that diner had like 7 or 8 recovery meetings in the evening and at night. And I started bringing petitions in there. Man, they blew it up. 100, maybe 1,000 petitions came through one diner.
Wow.
And a lot of folks look like me, right?
Wow.
And so it was a verification of what it was that you were kind of, challenging me. Like, nah, man, this is big. This is big.
Well, I'm going to tell you, man, and speaking of elevate, man, listen, this is a perfect opportunity to give a huge shout out to the Fireside chat team.
Come on, Fireside.
Right? Fireside is in the house.
What up?
Right, for really working with us to even help us create this platform to elevate the voices of people who are directly impacted. Man, you don't get too many organizations or outfits that think like that and say, wait a minute, let's get some returning citizens to do some things on the podcast.
No doubt. And to talk to them, right? Like they get it. They know our frustration is sometimes we don't like to get put in a box. We don't like the labels thrown at us and the stigma and people thinking like, oh, you're going to have this political conversation from the right or the left perspective. And we're like, no, we just want to talk about people, And so this gives us an opportunity. And they said, hey, man, that's what we want.
That's what we got. And that's what we got. So listen, Fireside team, check this out. Right, don't pull your hair, man. We may be going off course on some things. We might get a little crazy in here, but just know it's a good thing. I'm looking forward to a continued relationship with you guys at Fireside Chat. And listen, what's next, man? What are we doing?
Yeah, I know that we've actually got the way the Fireside sets this thing up is that there's an internal audience. The way they describe it is like Saturday Night Live, right? So you got, what's going on the stage, and then you got people there on the inside. And so we've got folks who are on the inside right now. And I know there's some folks with some questions.
Let's get one up. Let's try it out. Let's get one up here, man.
All right, let me see here. Somebody's got their hand up. Who's got their hand up? Where you at?
Get your hands up, y'all. If you want
to ask a question, go ahead, raise your hand.
Hands up. No question.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Okay, who we got?
All right. Gail. Gail has got a question. I'm going to go ahead. Go ahead, Miss Gail.
Is that Gail with a G?
With a G.
Okay.
What's up, Gail with a G?
Hello?
There she is. Hey, we hear you.
What's up, Gail?
I'm sorry about that. So I had a question about the housing. When you was talking about housing, I know with the returning citizen myself as well, that it's very hard getting housing because of that stigma with the your past, I'm just going to call it what it is, your past conviction. So do you all have anything coming up where you're gonna any politicians or anyone's gonna be changing anything and make it easier for us returning citizens to be able to get housing?
Gail, listen, let me tell you something, Gail. I'm glad you asked that question, right? Because it goes to what we're going to be doing on this podcast, right?
Okay.
We're looking to go as far as bringing people from Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, the HUD folks, right? They're the ones that have play a big role in laying out policies that determine who could live in government assistance housing and who can't, right? And so this issue, we've seen some recent statements by the administration, from the president, from the White House, talking about second chances and how, a lot of these policies that previously have been in place need to be revisited and to give people like me and you opportunities to get housing. And so in our podcast, we're going to be bringing on, whether it's elected officials, whether it's government workers or administrators that deal with that, and even returning citizens across the country who has worked on this issue to some degree of success, maybe in other states. And so we are that's definitely one of the things that's going to be highlighted on our podcast.
Yeah. And Gail, thank you for that question. I'd like to just add to what Desmond said, in part because of exactly the way you asked that question. You asked about politicians. And the truth is, yes, we're looking at, liability reform that have been done in Texas. We're looking at what they did in New Orleans and looking what they recently did in New Jersey and working with local officials and housing officials to see what can move. But ultimately, it ain't going to be just politicians doing it. It's going to be returning citizens. So when you say, hey, man, there are going to be some politicians doing it, you know how that moves? That moves just like we move with Amendment 4, which means that those of us who are returning citizens got to make our voices heard. We got to get united behind moving things that are actually going to impact our real lives. And I know there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of people like to talk about a lot of things, but you can't go too far talking to a returning citizen without somebody bringing up housing. So I'm really grateful that you brought that up today.
Well, I'm really glad that you have somebody on here and we'll be talking about it. We need to put a dent in that.
All right, Gail, make sure you got to do us a favor too now. Okay. Right. If we bring in that content that you need to hear, you also got to do your part and make sure that you spread the word about our voice podcast, right? Yeah. Share it with all your friends on all your social media. You do social media?
Okay. Yes.
You're not like that lady that have all those pictures on the wall talking about, I'm going to unfriend you, right? You know how to rock that social media?
No.
I need you. You got Instagram?
I don't have Instagram, but I have Twitter and I have Facebook and I have Today's Devotion.
So how do we share that? We just tell them to download the Fireside Chat app, right, and connect with FR's a Facebook page.
That's right.
Right, to keep updated. This show is going to be every 2 weeks. So our next show is going to be on the 10th of August. This is something that we're going to be running every 2 weeks until Kingdom Come, till the tires fall off, until Fireside Chat team say we can't deal with y'all no more.
And that's exactly right. Well, I'll tell you what, thank you, Gail.
I'm done. I don't care how they feel. Thank you. Right. I'm glad. Right. Thank you.
Well, it looks like we got other folks who have raised their hand, and man, that's pretty exciting. So I am going to go ahead and Jasmine has a question here. So I'm going to go ahead and Jasmine, go ahead.
Hey, Neil. Hey, Desmond. I am not a returning citizen, but I am directly impacted. I have a brother who just came home last year. And Ms. Gail talked about housing, which if you're in this work, you know that is one of the number one issues that impact people who are formerly incarcerated. I'd like to know what other issues around reentry can we look forward to you both speaking about on the podcast?
So, Jasmine, first of all, let me ask you, how long ago did your brother get released from prison?
He just got released last summer.
Yes, and is he living in Florida or another state?
He's currently in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee.
Okay, because matter of fact, we're talking to some folks in Wisconsin that's doing some amazing programs, and so that's another thing about this program is that we're not just confined to the state of Florida. And so we're going to be bringing people on from all over the country. We're going to be addressing issues that's going on throughout the country and not just in Florida as well. So we're going to be as wide reaching as possible, but making sure that the voices of directly impacted returning citizens are heard and your voice as well. So, Neil, you want to answer Jasmine's question?
Yeah, one great question, and I appreciate where it comes from. It comes from your heart, and it comes from the real experiences of people who have been impacted by the criminal justice system. I think that's important for all of us to see ourselves in this movement, right? Like this podcast is your podcast. It's our podcast. And what we want to do is kind of knit this whole thing together around those shared things that we all see. So for instance, getting access to employment. Right? Come on. Right now, people coming out of the pandemic, we see it all across the state right now. I was on the phone call, a Zoom call with some reentry professionals over in Pinellas County just a week or so ago. There are 60, 70 reentry leaders. And at the question and answer session, right at the end, same question. They said, man, these employers all over hitting us. How do we hire people? How do we hire people? What's going on with these barriers in terms of, that get in the way of hiring people with felony convictions?
But you know what, though, Neil? Let me tell you, what I've discovered, and Jasmine, and this is good news for your brother, is that this is not just happening in Florida, right? There is a national movement. There are corporations that are stepping up and understanding that they need to be more socially responsible. And they have been coming together over the last several months, trying to figure out ways how to create more opportunities for what they may call hard to hire people. Right. But there's a second chance hiring movement that is growing throughout the country, and even in the state of Wisconsin and other states where there are going to be opportunities for people like your brother to be able to not just get a job. Right. Man, listen, we're not shooting for the floor. We're shooting for the ceiling. Right. So we're talking about being able to get into apprenticeship programs and to get occupational licenses and to be able to start your own business and become a business owner, right? The sky is the limit, and we're here to just like destroy the ceiling, that low ceiling that has been in place for so long, so many generations.
No, that's exactly right, Des. I was talking to actually a head of a chamber of commerce with 150 business leaders, and right, she got it. Like, she was kind of like, oh, some of the best people you can hire are returning citizens. I'm like, yeah, of course that's right. Only to find out that her daughter was a returning citizen. So, right. So it's kind of like, okay, once we connect with people with love and understand that it's like, you know what, who benefits from a returning citizen getting a job, right? Like our politics are so broken, right? That they try and train us to think that when one person wins, another person loses. We all win when somebody gets a job. That employer wins, that person getting the job wins, that community wins because less crime. I mean, it's crazy to think that there are people out there who want to actually pigeonhole us and say like, man, if you win, I'm going to lose. Man, we got to fight against that.
Well, let me tell you something. We all win when everybody votes too as well. So Jasmine, do you know if your brother registered to vote yet?
That's a hard battle. I'm working on it.
All right. We got to work on it because part of that is, we have a lot of folks who, have previous felony convictions and think that they can't vote. And in a lot of these states, Wisconsin is one of them, where when a person do finish their time, all right, they're able to register to vote. And so being a registered voter, right, your brother, returning citizens don't have to wait for somebody else to come to the rescue. They can be a part of the rescue themselves, right? And part of that is by being registered to vote and showing up to vote. And that's something that we here at Florida Rights Restoration Coalition believes, right? Our voice is not just the sound that's coming out of our mouth. Our voice is our vote, right? We used to have a slogan that says, our vote, our voice, right? And we got it right now. And so please encourage your brother to look into seeing if he's eligible to register to vote. And if he is, he should get registered, get his voter identification card. And that's part of the empowering process. That's also part of the restoration process as well.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Jasmine, that like we're looking forward to having conversations and bringing people onto this podcast, right? Folks like your brother, right? Somebody who might have been direct filed, who has a passion about, juvenile justice because of life experiences. Somebody who's had to deal with some probation issues, man. The number of people who I come across who have had to go back to jail because of a technical violation, man, you're talking about families impacted by these things. And that pain turns into purpose for so many folks. But that all leads back to what Des said, man. Everybody wins when you vote, right? And that's the way that we can, channel all this energy that we've got, right, and that passion into a place that creates change.
Hey, Neil, you talking about? I almost called you Nick.
Oh no!
No, Nick, man. Speaking of energy, man, God, man, listen.
Oh, hey, man, we're learning the Fireside thing. All right.
Listen, for real. You talking about energy? Man, I am worn out, bro.
Oh, come on.
Man, it was so much energy this past weekend at the Rolling Loud Festival in South Florida.
You talking about Rolling Loud, the biggest hip hop concert in the country? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about Rolling Loud, the Woodstock of our time.
That's right. Hundreds of thousands of people at Hard Rock Stadium. And tell us about it, will you, Des? Because I know you were in the middle of the whole thing.
Man, we were fortunate to have a relationship with Warner Music Group and Rolling Loud, and we was able to have an activation booth within the festival grounds. And so everyone that came in to Rolling Loud, we had an opportunity to interact with them in some form or fashion. And we was either registering people to vote, we were signing people up for fines and fees, signing people up to learn more about FRC. And let me tell you, over 2,000 people, came to our tent. It was like a pandemania. I mean, I have never been to a Rolling Loud Festival before. Let me tell you, it is like so much energy there. And I had the opportunity to meet even some celebrities, some of these hip hop or rap stars, and talk to them about the work that we're doing at FRC. And these are like celebrities from all over the country. I ran into one, he was a little controversial. His name is Tory Lanez, right? He was talking about the work he's doing in California around district attorneys, right? Really elevating or doing some education around district attorneys. And we're letting people know that these are powerful people in our communities. They're the ones that decide whether or not they're going to charge you with an offense and how they're going to try to prosecute you, whether they're trying to throw the book at you or they're trying to give you a break or whatever. And so just speaking to all these different celebrities, and you could ask me who it was.
Well, let me ask you, though, because I know there's two things there, right? There's one, I know you sat on a panel discussion that talked about financial freedom for returning citizens, right?
Yeah.
But also, now I ask it now, but if you could just talk about it, we get asked a lot, like, hey, why do you work with so many celebrities and athletes and, people who are known in the community? Well, so maybe if you could talk about that panel and then talk a little bit about why we do what we do.
Yeah, that panel was sponsored by Ahead Financials, and they're a up-and-coming organization that seeks to make it easier for people with felony convictions to be able to open up bank accounts, and learn some more financial literacy. And so on that panel, we had, I was there with Rick Ross, Pusha T, and Lil' Kim, nice. Right? And we were talking about the challenges that returning citizens face after conviction or after being released from prison, not only financial challenges, because I remember when I was released, if I didn't have the proper ID, I couldn't even open up a bank account, right? And that was challenging in itself. And so all kinds of obstacles people face. But the main reason why, we really embrace the opportunity to engage with celebrities, whether it's a person like John Legend, Ariana Grande or people like that, is because the work that we're doing is so important and that we have to make sure that we amplify it at every juncture, right? And that's once again a reason why we're so appreciative of the Fireside Chat team for really working with us on this podcast, because this is another example of how we can elevate the issues and educate people and engage people and get people motivated, get them energized about registering to vote, get them energized about being a part of our democracy, right? And we want people from all walks of life, and the hip hop community engages people from all walks of life. I see more people that look like you than look like me at Rolling Loud, right? And so I bet a few of them were conservative, but they knew all the words of Kodak Black and they knew all the words of Rick Ross. And so if that's a way that we can connect with people that may have differences of opinion, if we can connect around music and take that opportunity to engage about, democracy, then why not take advantage of it?
I think of, Nelson Mandela had that famous quote that, athletes and entertainers can change the world and cut through all the clutter of, other people. Like, we just connect, man. You start singing a song, you ain't thinking about, politics and, right, left stuff, right?
So we had a lot of fun, took a lot of pictures, met a lot of great celebrities that seem to get it and are looking forward to working with FRRC to elevate the issues that surround people with felony convictions and their loved ones. So I'm excited about that.
Man, I love what's going on in Miami.
But listen, it's not just celebrities, man. We have even elected officials that are out there doing some amazing work. And I'm getting noticed that there's someone on the line for us.
What?
Oh, listen, let's bring this person in and see who this is.
Come on now.
Who do we have on the line?
Hi, this is Daniella. How are you?
Whoa, wait a minute.
On.
We talking about this is not just any Daniella, right? This is the mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniella Levine Cava, right? Is that do I have that right?
What?
No, where we get that round of applause at? Let me get the applause thing. Where's my studio at?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's so great to have you with us.
Wow. Hey, listen, that's an example. You never know who's going to pop up on our podcast.
So it just goes to show, I read your emails. I saw you were launching the podcast. I said, gotta be there. This is very cool. Something new. Something to talk to the world about the important work that's going on for returning citizens. And I wanted to be all about it. So thank you for letting me join.
Madam Mayor, let me tell you, when I seen that, let me tell you, my heart jumped. And let me tell you the first reason why my heart jumped. When we were engaged in Amendment 4, one of the things that we likened our campaign to was like the aftermath of a hurricane, right? How after a hurricane, how the community comes together. No one cares about your political preferences, the color of your skin, your immigration status, your sexual identity. No one cares about that. What they see is the humanity, and they respond to that, right? And so that was something that we embraced in Amendment 4. And just recently, because of the tragedy in Surfside, right, your leadership was like so amazing. And it was like to see the people come together. And you know what? No one asked who voted for Donald Trump or who voted for President Biden. No one asked about immigration statuses. But I seen so many first responders that was digging through that rubble. And all they cared about was that there was a human being that was in that rubble that they wanted to get to. Could you talk to that for a minute?
Yes, it's so true what you're saying. We've got a situation here where these men and women were searching as if it were for their own family and loved ones. And you could see it in their faces. And truly, they had to be pulled off the pile after the end of a long shift. They worked through horrendous heat and rain and even fire. They just worked because they knew that there were people there and there were families waiting, and it was like a calling. It was a mission. It was not a job. And the whole world saw that, and the whole world was embracing that community, and everybody was praying and everybody wanted to help, and it was truly a beautiful, beautiful coming together.
Wow, I was looking at that, man, and as tears was welling up in my eyes, I thought about, man, the work that we're doing and saying, you know what, that's the type of response we want for democracy, right?
Yes,
that people from all walks of life should be digging in that rubble and saving our democracy and fighting for it, right? Making sure that everybody, no matter what they may think or whether they agree with us or not, that everybody should be able to have a voice. But you didn't just stop there. One of the things that really and I really appreciate you for is the fact that we actually did something together about a month ago with the
right
Free to Vote bus tour.
Yeah.
And I'd like for you to just talk about that. How did you feel about what we did in those 3 days?
Well, first of all, the people might not know that you and I go way back. And so I've been following your career here and the passion and the drive that you have brought and been successful. And, truly the work that you've done, the campaigning over years to move forward and finally have success, the persistence, the endurance, the compassion, the persuasion. I was thinking about you and how you've grown through all of this to the leader that you are. And So we go back, is what I have to say. So when you call, I'm excited to support you. And you were doing this tour, and you wanted to come to Miami-Dade. So of course I wanted to be part of it, and so we did help host you at a couple of sites. And I wanted
rolled out the red carpet, Madam Mayor.
yes, sir. Yes,
That's right.
Yeah. So we wanted to be sure that there were programs there to help people in addition to what you were bringing, so that the whole it was another whole community response.
Well, Madam Mayor, this is Neil, and I got to say, it was an honor to spend time with you in the bus, and I know that you're a social worker and a lawyer, and it was cool to see how you process through how you lead a community. Could you talk a little bit about your no closed door policy and campaign, and how you work with returning citizens to make sure that there's barriers that are torn down so that people can live good lives?
Yeah. Well, yes, thank you. A lifetime of social work and public interest law, and it's a true honor to serve as county mayor and have a chance to put some of those experiences and aspirations into practice. So now we have an Office of Equity and Inclusion to make sure everybody gets a fair shot. We've got an Office of Neighborhood Safety that we're opening up. Actually, probably this week we'll be rolling it out, and that's going to include a focus on preventing crime, intervening with people who are in that path, and also helping people re-enter, and then building neighborhoods, revitalizing neighborhoods. So we're doing all of that. And then I've consolidated all our social service programs, and we have the approach of no wrong door. So no matter where you call in county government, you can get access to the services that you need. So everyone is going to be focusing on the customer, on the constituent. We have a new constituent services director monitoring and measuring and making sure everybody gets the attention. So I'm very excited. It really is a new day in county government.
Well, I am so glad that you are in office, Madam Mayor. During the pandemic, one of the things that, I learned and I always talked about was that the pandemic showed us that there is a clear distinction between a politician and a public servant. Right. And because of your leadership during Surfside and even before, and because of the policies that you're rolling out even now, you're giving folks an example of what a public servant really looks like. Right?
Thank you.
Because that distinction is that public servants would listen to the cries of the people and respond, right, in such a valiant way. And you did that. And I just want to applaud you for that, Madam Mayor. And I think part of the reason why you're such a great public servant is that your start was in service. Leading catalyst Miami.
Thank you, Desmond. And I do think more people who have been in active community service do need to step up to elected office and take that inside. And what they say about politicians, there's two kinds: the people that want to be someone and the people who want to do something. So I'm an old lady now running for office. It's too late for me to be someone. I just want to get things done.
Well, I think that just came out so loud and clear when we were talking to you. And I know that the systems of bureaucratized compassion can be challenging sometimes. But to hear you say very clearly, it's like, hey, we're focusing on people. Right? Like, no, whatever door like you come through or whatever kind of label that some program might give you, we're actually going to view you as a human being. Like, that's powerful. It's
well,
really powerful.
Let me tell you, Madam Mayor, we believe that there's approximately 292,000 returning citizens in Miami-Dade County.
Oh, my goodness.
292,000. Yes. And we're going to make sure that we're registering all those folks to vote. Right. We're going to work with them to help them with their fines and fees, get engaged. And we want to continue to engage with your office around ways that we can break down these barriers to employment, to housing, to education, and to democracy. Right. And so returning citizens are no different than anyone else, other than the fact that they may have made a mistake in the past, but they've paid their debt. And they deserve the opportunity to live, to pursue life happiness, and what's the other one?
It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, I'm here for you. Anything, I'm going to work hard as I can and take my ideas and inspiration from people like you. So let's keep on trucking till we get it done.
Well, Madam Mayor, I know your time is you've got limited time. We have a returning citizen who requested to ask a question. Would it be all right if we ask you one more question? We've got a returning citizen here on our app. So Jasmine, go ahead and ask your question.
All right, Jasmine, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
we can hear you. Yes.
What's your question, Jasmine?
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Des. I appreciate the opportunity to ask the question. Good evening to you, Madam Mayor, as well. I've got a quick question about your open door policy. I appreciate all the great work that you're doing in Miami-Dade. But as somebody who's trying to develop into a policy professional, I think policy changes lives. Good policy changes lives. And I appreciate the open door policy, but what does it really mean to have an open door policy? And how does that benefit the lives of returning citizens? How is it changing the lives of returning citizens?
So, yes, thank you so much. So we actually call it the no wrong door, the idea that, wherever you go in county government, we're here for you. And so... Hold on. I saw that I was an upside down smile, so I'm trying to change my portrait here so you can actually see me. So what that means is, let's say you come in to the juvenile justice system through our Office of Juvenile Services. We're going to find out, what does your family need? Are you in need of housing? We're going to work with you to help you find a suitable place for the family. Let's say you come in to apply for a Section 8 housing voucher, and it turns out you've got some children that are needing additional activities. We're going to connect you up to those activities. So it's like everything is all together. It's a whole family and whole community response. As far as returning citizens specifically, I mean, you're part of the whole fabric. So, no different than anyone else. And especially because you have some barriers to overcome, we're going to work our hardest to make sure, like just was mentioned by Desmond, we're going to make sure you get help with that job. We have in the county, for example, a ban the box. We banned the box. So you can apply for county employment regardless of your background with the justice system. And then, you get to the final point of selection, and then we look to see your record. And if there's a record, of course, if it's something that applies specifically to the job, then it might be a disqualifier, but there's nothing about the record that in itself disqualifies you. So that's just for county employment. So we're also creating this Office of Neighborhood Safety, which is going to be lobbying and advocating for changes to laws to make sure to eliminate barriers. So we're just, we're going to bring people together to make sure that we can get people the help they need.
Well, Mayor, I appreciate the No Wrong Door initiative. I also appreciate the fact that you're including not only returning citizens who have been impacted by the...
Seems like we may have lost.
I'm back. We're back.
Okay, so I was just saying I appreciate the No Wrong Door policy, but I was going to ask the question specifically concerning your average adult returning citizen who may have done quite a bit of time, incarcerated or, have an extensive record. Are those returning citizens actually getting jobs with the county, or are they just getting an opportunity to apply with the county, but in actuality being disqualified and thereby not being helped? What's really the ratio of how many returning citizens are actually getting jobs through this new effort and initiative of yours?
Yes. Well, that's a great question. And of course, my Office of Neighborhood Safety has not even started. So I'm giving you my, the preliminary, because we're just hiring people they're going to start in late August. So they're going to get started. But I can tell you that your question is such a good one that I am going to have them look into it. What is the ratio of people who are offered jobs, get to the final point, let's say without the record, they're screened. And then because of the record, they do not get the job within county government. And my Office of Equity and Inclusion, Jason Smith is our director. He's looking at doing an equity audit of every department. And we can also, he's looking at issues of racial and gender and disability and different equity. But absolutely, we should look at that issue of equity as well. So it's a very good point, and we want to look at it and look at our benchmark and try to do a better job of removing barriers.
All right. Well, Madam Mayor, thank you so much for that. We look like we are almost out of time, but we do have a special guest we definitely want to bring up just to say hello. He's going to have his own segment on our podcast. Is Coach around?
Coach Van Gundy is on the stage, man.
Coach, you got the mic. What's up, Coach?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
All right. Let everybody know who you are, man, because I can't introduce you better than you can.
My name's Stan Van Gundy, and I'm a former NBA coach of both Florida teams here, Orlando and Miami, plus two others, and a big supporter of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and the two of you.
Coach, man, listen, man, I know we're out of time, man, but I'm going to let you know we are bringing you back. Hopefully, maybe we could even, if we're lucky enough, and you know what? We're going to put the Fireside Chat team on notice that if we can get Mark Cuban to come on with Coach Stan Van Gundy.
Come on, what kind of conversation would that be?
Oh, my God, man. That was, man, especially with owners and coaches and athletes and what their take is on what's going on in our society, what's they taking what's going on in our criminal justice system. That would be amazing. What do you think, Coach Van Gundy?
I'll come on anytime, but more than anything, I like listening to the voices of the returning citizens, and I'm glad you've got a podcast that will give them their voice.
And please spread the word to all of your colleagues in the NBA and in the NFL. And I know you're down with the Players Coalition. You let them know that Our Voice podcast is where it's at. Right, and people need to tune in, Coach. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, we just want to thank you for walking the walk the way you have for so many years, man, from 2017 convening, to documentaries, all kinds of, work that you just raise your voice and you listen and you know what you're talking about, man. So it was awesome to see you pop up here on this podcast, and we look forward to talking to you further.
Real soon. We're going to have you back real soon, Coach. So,
well, I just wanted to hear the first one. I wanted to be part of history. I want to be part of history. Yes. When this is the most listened to podcast in the country, I want to say I listened to the first one.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, man, you are something, Coach.
Man, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice, Coach. And make sure you tell folks who are listening, download the Fireside Chat app. And you know what? The beautiful thing is that the folks at Fireside Chat, man, they are working like around the clock. And they're going to try to be bringing video capabilities to this. So you're not only going to be hearing our voices, man, you're going to see this kick butt studio, right, that our team put together. You can see the pictures on our Facebook pages, man. But we got a smooth, sexy, beautiful. What other word? I can't even think of another word, but it's chic. That's what the word is, chic. We have a chic studio here, and I can't wait for folks to actually be able to see us live on video. And I know that the Fireside Chat people are working diligently to make sure that happens. But until then, make sure you download the Fireside Chat app.
And Coach, I think what Desmond means is that we didn't put it together, the two of us, or we'd have some Popeye's chicken right here, probably with some NBA playing, so, but the team did an amazing job, man. It looks really good. And like Desmond said, this technology is only going to get better and better. Yeah. We know right now it's limited to some phones and some platforms, but this thing's going to be available to anybody and everybody in upcoming weeks and months.
And we're going to get better and better too, Neil.
Yeah.
This is our first podcast ever. you know, and so I love the time. It seemed like time flies, right? But, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to being on this journey with you, Neil.
Man, you too, Desmond.
It's going to be a great one, and we got the Fireside Chat team with us. Definitely appreciative of Madam Mayor Daniella Levine Cava for popping on, Coach Stan Van Gundy. We had questions from Jasmine, that rhymes too. You know, Jasmine, and Gail, right? So appreciate your questions. We're looking forward to really having more engagement with our audience and bringing in some very good topics and some subject matter experts from around the country, whether they're returning citizens themselves, people who've been in the fight like Coach Van Gundy, whether it's movie stars, we're gonna bring them in, man.
No, that's right. And Desmond, I'm just looking at these speaker requests and people, man, this thing's popping here on that Fireside app. So returning citizens, man, we hear what's going on. We know that we want to amplify voices and share stories and have this more full conversation. I want to close with one story if I could, Desmond, because it's always important because it changed my life, man, literally changed the way I see this movement. Right. Like I mentioned, I was helping to lead a recovery program. And you and I had met you a couple years before, and we were well on the way around Amendment 4. And I still had this mindset, man, from back when I worked in politics of this kind of right-left thing. And you set me straight in one moment. And I just want to share the story because I hope it touches somebody else's heart and changes the way they see things too. And I was talking to you about like how we communicate and talking to conservatives and man, we go everywhere, right? There's no to us, man. We'll talk to anybody. It's always been that way. But I was having this conversation. You stopped me like, man, you're not wrong what you're saying. He's like, but what's going on here is deeper than that. He's like, at the end of the day, man, if people see us as people, Amendment 4 passes. If they see us as something else in that, then we still got work to do. And so it passed because people saw that this was a movement of love, that it was about our neighbors, our loved ones, our cousins, our friends. People have been impacted by the criminal justice system. People been impacted by the criminal justice system. And so, man, on this first podcast, like you said, man, we're going to learn how to use all this technology and get people on in a better way. But man, I'm just grateful for you, for your leadership. And it's going to be fun journey, man, to keep having these kind of conversations.
All right. We love you, Neil.
I love you too, man.
All right, thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us on our inaugural podcast, Our Voice Podcast. And I hope that you guys tune in next 2 weeks?
2 weeks on the 10th.
Right.
Yeah. Peace out.
That's right. Peace.
See y'all.